Factsverse presents 16 Amazing Inventions Created by Accident. Number 1. Cornflakes were originally made to prevent masturbation. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg and William Keith Kellogg were anti-masturbation dietitians. It was their theory that if a person ate a healthy, clean diet of plain foods, it could reduce sexual urges. They decided to start experimenting with granola, believing that it had non-stimulating properties. The brothers cooked up a batch of wheat and left it out on the counter to handle other things. When they came back, it was stale. They decided to roll it out anyway, and it formed into a flat, thin flake, which today we know as cornflakes. The Kellogg brothers went on to create a huge cereal empire. Number 2. The Slinky was originally designed for use on naval ships. An engineer on a Navy ship named Richard James was working one day to develop a meter that would monitor the horsepower of the ships during World War II. When he was working on his invention, one of the springs that he was using to stabilize the meter fell off of his work table and started to walk away. When he saw the spring walking, he thought that would be a great child's toy. He continued to work on his invention, and the first Slinky was made in 1945. Number 3. Coca-Cola was supposed to be a remedy for headaches. A pharmacist named John Pemberton was trying and failing over and over again to create a medical remedy to cure his frequent headaches. One day, out of frustration, he dumped several ingredients into a kettle and hoped that it would work. When he cooked up his remedy and allowed it to cool down, he realized that it tasted great. While it did not cure his headache, he created the recipe for what we know today as Coca-Cola. Number 4. Post-it notes were supposed to be super adhesive. A scientist named Spencer Silver was trying to come up with a super strong adhesive for the 3M company in 1968. Unfortunately, he ended up with a weak adhesive, which could be peeled off of any surface. Nobody thought the product that he created would be of any use to anyone. Soon after, another scientist named Art Fry used his little pieces of paper to make bookmarks for his church songs. When he realized that they stuck well, didn't leave any glue residue on the paper, and could be removed easily, Post-it notes were born. Number 5. Potato chips were created by a chef trying to get back at an infuriating customer. In 1853, an annoying customer went into a restaurant in Saratoga Springs, New York, and ordered fried potatoes. He kept sending his fried potatoes back, telling the waiter that they were too thick and too soggy. Finally, Chef George Crumb had had enough. He cut the potatoes into extremely thin slices and fried them until they were very crispy. He covered them with salt and sent them back to the customer. The customer thought that they were delicious, and Saratoga chips were born. Soon after, everyone started making their fried potatoes this way. Number 6. Play-Doh was made to clean wallpaper. Noah McVickers had a soap company called Kutal Products. They created a moldable substance that was supposed to be a wallpaper cleaner. When teachers purchased the wallpaper cleaner to clean their classrooms, they started giving it to their students for arts and crafts. It took years for McVickers to realize how fun it could be for children. When the company discovered this, they remarketed the product for children, eventually selling the idea to Hasbro. Today, it is called Play-Doh. Number 7. Champagne was originally supposed to be wine. There is much debate regarding who actually invented champagne. This debate is actually about who first distributed the product, but how champagne was created was the weather. In the 1490s, the climate began to change significantly. This climate change had a drastic effect on the production of wine and its fermentation. The grape juice used in the wine didn't completely ferment due to the drop in temperature. Instead, the yeast stopped working and remained dormant until spring. This is when a second round of fermentation should have taken place. Due to the gap in the fermentation, carbon dioxide formed in the wine, which is the bubble that we see in champagne. Number 8. Soldiers' wounds were dressed with Kotex in World War I. Kotex was originally known as Cellucotton and was used to dress the soldiers' wounds. While treating the soldiers, the Red Cross nurses discovered that the product would be a great option for feminine care products. In 1920, Kotex was invented, changing the lives of women forever. Number 9. Artificial sweetener was discovered when a chemist didn't wash his hands before dinner. In 1979, a chemist named Konstantin Fahlberg was working with coal tar all day. When his wife called him to dinner, he sat down to eat without washing his hands first. When he started eating, he noticed that everything that he put in his mouth tasted very sweet. He realized that the saccharin on his hands was what was making the food taste sweet, and the sugar substitute that we enjoy today was born. Number 10. Chewing gum was a failed attempt at making a natural latex. A man named Thomas Adams was trying to create a rubber replacement out of natural latex. He became overwhelmed and frustrated when he kept failing. One day he put a piece in his mouth and realized that the flexible material was very fun to chew. Soon after, he decided to add flavors to the material. In 1888, the name chewing gum was coined, and one of the world's most tasty treats was officially invented. Number 11. Popsicles were supposed to be soda pop. In 1904, an 11-year-old boy was experimenting with new ways to make his own homemade soda pop. During his experiment, he had to go to bed. He left a batch sitting outside with a stirring stick in it. Overnight, the temperatures dropped to freezing. When he went outside the next morning to clean up his mess, he found a frozen treat waiting for him, and popsicles were born. Number 12. Chocolate chip cookies were created out of a lack of ingredients. In 1930, a woman named Ruth Graves Wakefield was cooking in the inn that she co-owned called the Toll House Inn in Whitman, Massachusetts. She was trying to make one of her famous chocolate desserts when she ran out of the chocolate that she usually used. In order to save her dish, she poured Nestle semi-sweet chocolate chips into the batter instead. During the baking process, she realized that the chip did not melt like she wanted them to. She served the dessert to her customers anyway, and they were a huge hit. In 1939, Nestle introduced Nestle Toll House Real Semi-Sweet Chocolate Morsels, and the chocolate chip cookie was born. Number 13. Silly putty was a recipe for rubber gone wrong. During World War II, Japan was attacking many of the companies that manufactured rubber in Asia. This caused a big problem for America. America needed rubber for tires, gas masks, life rafts, boots, and a variety of other tools necessary during the war. At first, Americans were asked to donate old tires, boots, raincoats, and anything they had that was made of rubber. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough. In 1943, an engineer named James Wright was working for General Electric and was trying to find a way to make synthetic rubber. He combined boric acid and silicone oil into a test tube, and Silly Putty was born. When General Electric realized that it had no properties that they needed in rubber, Wright moved on. In 1949, Peter Hodgson, an unemployed man, had an idea. He borrowed $147 to buy the rights from GE and started packaging the rubber in a plastic egg and created what we now know as Silly Putty. Number 14. Matches were actually an accident. For thousands of years, people had been trying to find an easy way to start a fire. Finally, in 1926, a chemist named John Walker was working in his lab. He was stirring a pot of chemicals when he discovered that there was a dried lump at the end of his mixing stick. Without even thinking about it, he tried to scrape it off, and it lit. He started producing the sticks and sold them at a local bookstore. They were called friction lights. They were 3 inches long and came in a box complete with a piece of sandpaper. These were the first version of the matches that we use today. Number 15. Ice cream cones were invented due to a lack of dishes and a failing Persian waffle booth. This is one of the most delicious and amazing inventions created by accident. For years, ice cream was a treat that people loved. At first, vendors started serving ice cream out of glass dishes. The only problem was that the person consuming the sweet treat had to stand with the vendor until they finished their ice cream so that they could give the dish back to the vendor. This wasn't the most convenient way to enjoy the treat. Most people chose to eat ice cream sitting in a restaurant where they could be comfortable. Finally, during the 1904 World's Fair, the ice cream cone was accidentally born. An ice cream stand was doing excellent and selling more ice cream than they could handle. Soon, the owner of the stand was running out of plates. In the booth next door, the Persian waffles were not selling at all. The two booth owners talked, and they put the ice cream in the waffle. It was a great way for people to walk around and enjoy their delicious treat. Both booth owners made money, and the ice cream treat was born. Number 16. Over the years, many ancient civilizations have been studied and excavation has been done. During this time, archaeologists found several stone objects that resembled a penis. Many people will say that they were statues used for religious and fertility rituals. Because these archaeologists lived in the Victorian era, where the people were very conservative, they may have known that they found one of the many inventions created by accident, but rather than saying that they found the world's first sex toys, they would have been too much for the world to handle, so they stuck with the religious and fertility story. Subscribe for more!